Hi, I'm Manka from MedRise Studio, and this is the place to be to hear about the latest Web3 trends in healthcare. Today, we have an exciting episode for you because we are journeying at the intersection of virtual reality and artificial intelligence in healthcare. Our guest is a pioneer in this space, someone whose work stands at the fascinating intersection of all these technologies with medicine and education as well. I'm thrilled to introduce George Papagiannakis, co-founder and CEO of OramaVR, a Swiss deep tech startup accelerating the world's transition to medical XR training. He is also a professor of computer graphics at the University of Crete, a researcher at Forth, and a visiting professor at the University of Geneva and Stanford University. So joining us from Palo Alto is George. George, welcome to the show.
Hi, Anga. Thank you for having me.
George, I wanted to start by talking a bit about your journey in computer science and how you reached the medical world and the world of medical training, because I think it's a fascinating background that you have. So can you share your story with us and explain how you made this leap from computer science to working in medical training?
Sure. My alma mater is the University of Geneva, where I did my PhD with one of the pioneers of virtual worlds and virtual humans, Professor Nadia Talman. She coined the term virtual human. So I had the chance to be exposed in one of the very first research strands on using VR for cardiac resuscitation. This was back 25 years ago. So we did two publications on this very subject, which was just starting at that time. So fast forward that, I'm a tenured professor at the University of Crete in Greece, and I have a discussion with one of my future co-founders, a professor of orthopedics who just had returned as well. And he told me that day his residents, when he asked them what is the next step during an operation, just to test them, they couldn't tell him. Although they have seen him doing the operation many times, the bibliography, etc. So I told him they never tried on a simulator. We published this 25 years ago. And he told me there is no simulator for open surgeries. So this research was stale at that moment. So I said, okay, maybe we should do it. And that's how we started together the idea of OramaVR. And it happened at the same time where my internal clock was synchronizing with the value of impact. After receiving tenure, I was looking, okay, how can we make the world a better place through science? What is the next step? Because the academic world is amazing, teaching and doing research, but at some point in time, you would like to have your footprint on society and to have some real impact. And I think doing anything we can to improve the healthcare is one of the most noble causes in our time. So there you go.
So the medical world is a great place to start when you're trying to make an impact. Virtual environments and AI have really come a long way in recent years. We've been talking about them quite a lot, but I was wondering, what's the current state of these technologies? And can you explain what's the reality from the hype and the buzz?
It's a great question, very difficult to answer in a few seconds. I will just try to start from the very beginning of your introduction when you mentioned about the Web3 technologies. So actually now, European Commission published a position paper. They don't use the word Metaverse, but they use the word Web4, which is not something very well known yet. But according to the European Commission, all the interplay of immersive technologies, extended reality, and 3D are coming together to form this new Web4, where real and virtual objects coexist in extended reality environments. And on the background of this, we understand that in order for these Web4 worlds to be built, we cannot be doing it using manual ways of the past. So Web4 and spatial computing and extended reality, they need AI in order to be able to build massively at scale and customizable. And on the other hand, AI needs extended reality because it needs to come to the real environment. So it needs to understand what is happening around them. So for this, we call it now embodied AI, or we call it special with T intelligence, like special computing, special intelligence. So the idea of coming into the real world is the next thing. And the training environments are from extended reality. So we will be training the next versions of AI on our real environments using XR. So there is a symbiosis of these two worlds, AI and extended reality, that truly it seems like they will be unlocking amazing opportunities. And specifically on healthcare, for us, one very important aspect is how can we create the digital twins of the thousands of medical operations out there. Our vision is to accelerate computational medical extended reality. Ideally, no surgeon, doctor, or nurse should practice on a real patient. They should be able to practice on a digital twin first, any medical operation, before doing it on the real subject. And for this, we need AI and XR and Web4 to realize this ambitious goal.
So, talking about your company and your vision, I know that you've identified that computational medical XR can significantly impact 5 different areas that you're working on: training, planning, navigation, rehabilitation, and therapy. Could you walk us through each one of these different areas and how virtual reality or extended reality is transforming each one of them?
Greatly, yes. So currently we are co-authors of this new space, new interdisciplinary field that tries to bring together AI, computational science, and extended reality to solve these 5 big problems you mentioned in medicine. So, in a nutshell, computational medicine is being supercharged with extended reality to solve these 5 problems that we identified in the patient journey. So, at the beginning, we would like to have a digital twin of a generic patient so that we can train surgeons, physicians, and nurses on a generic digital twin of a patient, on any therapeutic, diagnostic, or surgical operation. So this is the phase 1, training. The phase 2 is exactly the same technology if we can substitute the generic virtual patient with a patient-specific 3D model, then it becomes planning. So it's not just training anymore. It is also a valuable tool for an experienced medical professional to plan the medical intervention he will do on me and you tomorrow, any surgical, diagnostic, or therapeutic. So starting from training, and you imagine you have a medical XR training app, if you just remove the generic 3D patient with a patient-specific 3D model, then it becomes planning. After the planning, we come in the real OR during the intervention. If someone then having exactly the same technology, but having different types of hardware, more like MR or AR glasses, then they can use it as a navigation device because it will allow them to see in their field of view all the information about the real patient without looking around into 10 different monitors, and ideally to see behind on of the different anatomical layers. So then it's a question of hardware and accuracy, going from training to planning to navigation. Then we have the real operation taking place. And afterwards, we have what is called the patient record, because then we have all the results of the intervention. And then we can go directly then to help the patient with the final 2 steps of rehabilitation and then therapy. So this is a multidisciplinary field. Medical XR, it has been defined. There is now a journal, and it is like a huge field of any application of XR in medicine. But in computational medical XR, we try to solve these 5 problems. We try to focus on them. We believe they will create the biggest impact in our field and direct impact on patient results. In the end of the day, we want to improve the physicians and nurses and surgeons so that their quality of training and education directly impacts and saves lives. The training model hasn't been changed for the last 150 years, since 1890 that Halstead introduced it at Johns Hopkins. And the result today is staggering. We have 160,000 fatal medical errors in Europe alone. So despite the amazing technological process and progress we still have rising fatal medical errors. And the reason is one of these 5 areas, starting from training, planning, navigation, rehabilitation, therapy. That's our goal.
So help me understand, you mentioned the transition from training to planning, which is basically training on a standard patient to planning for a particular patient. How far along are we from creating an actual digital twin of a real patient? Do we have enough data? Can we synthesize enough data for the one that we don't have and we're missing? Where are we right now?
That's a great question. So patient-specific modeling, it has been a target in the research community for years and a very active research field. And we have today amazing results, combining all the different imaging modalities, CT, MRI, X-rays. We are now capable of having very accurate digital twins. The issue we have today is that this is still a manual process. It still requires a person using different types of softwares and the pipeline to be able, using at the minimum few days or few weeks, to generate these digital twins. The next frontier in this is using generative AI to be able to automatically synthesize all these different modalities so we can produce in a semi-automatic or even automatic way these digital twins of my body and your body, so that then we can go ahead and replace the generic ones so that we can do the planning phase. So this is the research currently, which is very active, and we are witnessing every day these fantastic results. So we have seen, of course, the native AI for text, for images. We are seeing now for video. We started seeing for 3D objects. I think one of the next steps will be to have text to patient-specific modeling.
Yeah, and I really wanted to get into that because we discussed preparing this episode about some of the trends that you see in this space. And you said that the idea that the medical metaverse will be built using AI instead of HTML or traditional computer code is a trend that you see emerging, and this is allowed by the volume of information and the pace at which generative AI is advancing. Can you talk a bit more about this?
Sure. This goes back to one of the early 20th century philosophers, Marshall McLuhan, so who said that the medium is the message. In essence, this is a new medium, which we don't fully yet understand. The way that virtual worlds, Web4 and the Metaverse are changing the new type of interaction that we have. And if you think about it, this has been happening all the time. So TV replaced cinema. Cinema replaced theater. Theater replaced written books. Written books, oral tradition. So we have this going on. So we have now something new that is coming. So it is not like a game. It's not like a storytelling. So it's like a kind of story living environment. So for this, as we are exploding the different degrees, because at least on cinema, we can control the camera and the whole narration and the motion is controlled. In that way, now that we have total freedom to roam around in a virtual environment and interact with different aspects of it, it cannot be done if there is not some kind of controlling entity behind. So I think AI is going to be used there not to be able to coordinate all of these different degrees of freedom and different ways to actually use these environments. And of course, in order to build them, I don't believe that this will be built in the way that the first websites were built because of this massive information that is needed. Imagine any type of medical operation, of how many different details they need to be instilled in the system, from the patient, from the equipment, from the procedure. And thus, I am very convinced that the AI is the answer behind that, specifically generative AI, to help us to bring some balance into this creative process. On the other hand, it's very challenging because we don't want hallucinations. In current AI systems, when they produce something we don't like, we call it hallucinations. When they produce something we like, we call it creativity. But on medical XR training simulations, we need accuracy. And this is a big requirement.
Another thing that we also talked about is the need for personalization. And I'm wondering, do you see in the future doctors creating their own virtual environments that respond to their specific needs? Maybe they are consulting with a patient who wants explanation about the way that some treatment works on breast cancer, let's say. Would that doctor be able to really quickly simulate a virtual environment that shows how that molecule acts? Is this something you envision?
Precisely, yes. This is our vision. Maybe not for, they won't be able to start from scratch. So maybe they will be able to use some templates in the same way today they use templates for their PowerPoint presentations. They rarely start from a blank PowerPoint slide. But this idea is very powerful because it allows you to customize the solution. And as an academic, I know this firsthand. There is no standardized way to convey the information. Even same universities, in the same city, different departments, they are not teaching similar subject in the same way. They are customizing it and personalizing it based on the audience, based on the subject matter expert that is delivering the message. So I think the one size fits all era is gone. It was like at the very beginning when people were enthusiastic about this technology, and they were lacking the knowledge of the background of this because many people believe that this era started in 2015 when Facebook bought Oculus. But actually, in 2018, we celebrated 50 years of virtual reality. 1968 is supposed to be year one with Ivan Sutherland. So, of course, these 50 years, 55 years now is nothing comparison to life sciences and the history of sciences, but it's still not something very, very recent. So we have seen winters and summers in virtual reality and extended reality. And one of these is the very recent euphoria that because we are capable of simulating a virtual environment, we will be able to create a few that will solve all our problems. I don't believe in this. I think these solutions, they need to be customized, and they're very hard to be built and to maintain. Once people realize that, then they start looking for ways to improve this creation process, to make it more automatic, more customizable, and more personalizable.
And I'm also curious to understand the differences that you see in Europe versus the US, because you teach in both areas, and you're right now in Palo Alto, which I think is at the peak of innovation. So I'm really curious to understand, how do you see, first of all, the development of the technology, and second of all, the adoption by healthcare professionals of these virtual environments?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm still learning and trying to find out what to instill from both cultures to one to another. There has been a very recent report by Draghi on the competitiveness of Europe, and I welcome everyone to have a look at it. So he tries to say that, listen, in Europe, we have amazing educational systems, we have amazing health systems and welfare systems, but we are lacking in innovation and competitiveness. And unless we change something, we will fall behind, because US from one side and China from the other side, they are really supercharging the technological advances. And in order for us to be able to maintain these three systems that we are very proud in Europe, we really need to change the way we think about innovation. So Regulation is important and protecting the rights of the citizens. I fully understand that. But we need, on the other hand, to see it in the light of what can we enable faster and jump and to leapfrog into different categories. By the time we regulate a space in Europe, the others, they have leapfrogged one era totally ahead of us. So I'm amazed on how fast the cycles of innovation are going through in US. I'm also amazed on their risk-averse, risk-prone ideas. So one recently said that if Elon Musk was in Europe and saying, I want to colonize Mars, Europeans would laugh and tell him, no, this is impossible, you cannot do that. In US, I told him, great, let's do it. I mean, let's find a way to do it. So it's a very different mentality regarding risk and regarding innovation. I think in Europe, we can learn a lot about this mentality. And on the other hand, in US, they still, I think, look up to our education-free system, mostly free in Europe, the health system, as well as the welfare state and the social cohesion that we have. But I think we can learn from both systems in order to move to society 2.0.
And this taste for innovation and taking risk, does that translate in the medical community as well? Do you see doctors adopting more frequently, easily, this type of innovation?
Absolutely. For example, here at Stanford, I'm invited to go to a lab that they're doing AI for surgery. And for example, they are using our platform, which I didn't know until very recently. So they're quite open to explore new ways and new fields. And also the fact that all the IT big companies are here, and they are also pushing a lot towards this direction because they create an ecosystem that feeds to each other, academia, research, innovation. And this translates on the medical field as well. But it's not to say that in Europe we don't have amazing strides on this. For example, recently at the University Hospital of Geneva, they have a new department which is called virtual medicine, which serves this type of technologies horizontally to all hospital departments. And this such a department I haven't seen yet in the US. So yes, they are very much advanced in many other fields, but sometimes we Europeans, we have the luxury to leapfrog when we listen and see clearly more the innovative aspects of technology.
Perfect. Thank you, George, so much for all these insights and for this great conversation. It was great having you on the show.
Thank you, Anka, so much for having me, and congrats for the very innovative show. I think there are not many like that, so congrats.
Thank you so much. And that's it for today. Thank you all for joining us for this interview, and I will see you soon for another Web3 adventure in healthcare.